We are back with more NBA coverage, and in this one I will be covering all the Game 6 action. To get things started with the Knicks and Pistons on Thursday, I missed the entire first half live because I was occupied at the time. Still, where I was tracking it on my phone, and I did note that the Pistons had gone up by 2. I didn't know how it happened, and in post, you had Malik Beasley hit a fucking buzzer beater and just do his signature. I don't even know what the hell to call it. But he got that done because prior to that, the Knicks actually had the lead for a while. It was slipping away, though, because once I had gotten back in from that particular event and started watching the second half, they displayed a graphic showing just how cold the Knicks had become. Like, to go from a 37-point quarter shooting upwards of 60% from the field, and then to drop down to just a 22-point quarter with terrible efficiency is asinine for a team that's trying to close out a series, right? And honestly, all of that just allowed the Pistons to get themselves right back into it. They come into the second half with all the momentum. Fans are on cloud nine cheering, providing as best of the home court advantage as they possibly can. That's just not a situation you want to find yourselves in. We get into the third quarter, and Josh Hart immediately just gets himself into foul trouble. So now all of a sudden, they're going to have to make themselves a little short in terms of defensive prowess, even though I guess 1 through 5, well, 2 through 5 technically. I'm not going to call Jalen Brunson a crazy defender or anything like that. That would be a stretch. Still, they would pick things up a little bit, being able to create some distance as the Pistons, for whatever reason, just decided to allow them to repeat every single thing that was working for them in the first. The core players were getting themselves involved as Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby would hit some key shots for them down the stretch, and then Jalen Brunson as well, compared to the last game, had a tremendous overall start, and he was still getting shots to go during this time. Despite their best efforts to throw multiple defenders at him, they couldn't do it and stick with him effectively for enough time. Also, turnovers would once more flare up for Pistons over the course of what would be a 33-21 run. As Paul Reed tried to attempt a goddamn shot and then just got his pockets picked by OG Anunoby because, of course, it got so bad for the Pistons so quickly that they decided they would just have to hack Mitchell Robinson. So they sent him to the free throw line at multiple points during this time, and it kind of worked. I mean, he missed, but still on their end, they weren't necessarily getting great looks themselves. So it meant absolutely nothing, especially if the Knicks were just going to come right back down the court and score regardless. It's like, what? Like, come on, man. Now, they would start to turn things around just a touch towards the end of the quarter as Malik Beasley would get a couple free throws, pushing the lead down to 9 before Josh Hart, doing Josh Hart things, would outmuscle the Pistons for an offensive rebound and once more get them on the board with a dunk, bringing the lead up to 11 after another 37-point quarter for the Knicks. Now, they would display a graphic stating that Jalen Duren was the 4th player since 1990 to average 10, 10, and 5 in their postseason debut. I think that's Pistons players since 1990 to do so. It could be all time, but hey, that's still a good accomplishment. Still, though, from how he had actually been playing some of these games, there's a little bit to be desired, of course. But we are dealing with a young player. He's just 21 years old in his first ever postseason. So you can't really even be that harsh on him, I understand. But they were certainly going to need him down the stretch. And let's just say that without his presence in the rebounding aspect, they crumbled. Because there would be a sequence as the Knicks would continue to try and put this game away where Jalen Brunson just chucks up a three-pointer from the corner and misses. And then you have Dennis Schroeder and I think Paul Reed at this point. Dennis Schroeder and I think Ausar Thompson, gunning for the rebound. And they just run towards it without making so much as an attempt to get the ball. Jalen Brunson gets it right back and puts up an easy layup. I got so confused at that point. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Go for the ball. Why are we just running blindly out there and allowing the smallest player by far on the court on any team figuring out a way to get the long rebound off of a miss from three? That cannot happen in those moments. That is horrible. But the Pistons, for a multitude of reasons, were able to come back. You get some clutch shot making from Cade Cunningham and good overall ball movement. They were also able to force the Knicks into some turnovers themselves. All of a sudden, after an Ausar Thompson dunk on fast break opportunity, you had a tied ball game. It also should be noted as well that Karl-Anthony Towns didn't do much of anything. I mean, to his credit, he did get a win on a jump ball that saw Josh Hart eventually get a layup off it, and even then the Pistons were able to take a lead. Meanwhile, this man, Karl-Anthony Towns, is literally nowhere to be found in the second half, as he would have just 2 points in the second half and would eventually foul out of the ball game with around a minute or so left. Jalen Brunson was also getting clamped up just a little bit, especially by Ausar Thompson. Now, granted, as things progressed, he was able to get his, but Ausar Thompson was the main culprit here. He had that man in jail in the fourth quarter, and everything after that was made much more difficult for him. The Pistons would go up by as much as 7 after Tim Hardaway Jr. attempted to put the game on ice himself, which could have potentially given the Pistons their first home playoff win in 17 years. But Jalen Brunson would finally decide to break this damn streak, and he just clutched up big time, as Mikal Bridges would eventually tie up the ball game at 113 all. The Pistons would, on a very tough play, just miss a layup from point-blank range. It gave the Knicks a chance to ice it, and you knew who the ball was going to in that moment. The man that they call Captain Clutch finally had a chance to redeem himself, but he would be guarded by a familiar foe in Ausar Thompson. And let's just say that he quite literally broke out of the jail cell that Ausar Thompson had him in. He broke him as Ausar Thompson just moved himself to the far left side of the court, while Jalen Brunson used that opportunity to sprint over as quickly as he could to the top of the key. And Ausar Thompson was so far out of position, he tried to contest, but it wouldn't faze Jalen Brunson ultimately, as he would knock down a cold-ass three-pointer to essentially give the Knicks a chance to close out. The Pistons would have one more shot, though. But one of the most anticlimactic fashions imaginable, the game would end, because Malik Beasley, on a play that was initially drawn up for Cade Cunningham, because they smartly doubled him, Malik Beasley had a chance to leak out towards the wing and potentially get an open look. He'd been shooting well in this game, too. as I mentioned, with him being able to get the damn three-point shots he did to end off the half, he was playing well, to his credit. So you would trust that if you were the Pistons in this moment. And it looked like it was going to be a very good play call until he dropped it. It went right through his hands, out of bounds, game over, series over. Knicks would win it in 6 with a 116-113 victory. You know, for where the Pistons were at around this time last year, fighting for a high lottery pick, for them to be in this position, they shouldn't be disappointed with themselves. I'm going to tell you that right now. Like, yes, would you have wanted to see them do a bit more in this series? Sure. But the numbers don't lie. This series was so close. The Pistons played them so close. Like, all of these damn games were just within single possession. I kid you not. Like, if you look at it, outside of the very first game, the last 5 in the series were decided by 6, 2, 1, 3, and 3. Think about that shit. Just 15 points made up the difference in the series outside of game 1. But that's again, you know, it's about the little things in that moment, and that is what it was going to come down to. Luckily for the Knicks, their experience won out here. But there will be some cause for concern for the Knicks going into the next round, of course. Seeing as you are championship contenders being taken to the brink, it took you a clutch time three-pointer. Granted, you love to see Jalen Brunson make it, but it took that to knock off a young and hungry Pistons team. So if you match up against someone with more experience, you could be in for something. That's all I'm going to say. As for the numbers, Cade Cunningham had 23 points, 8 assists, 7 rebounds, and 3 steals with a block on 9 of 22 shooting. Did not make a single three. Jalen Duren had 21 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists on 6 of 9 shooting. Malik Beasley had 6 3-pointers, 20 points off the bench. Not a bad game at all. But the one turnover that would hurt them the most came at the worst possible time. Ausar Thompson had 17 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 steals with 2 blocks on 5 of 7 shooting. Tobias Harris had 14 points and 5 rebounds on 6 of 10 shooting. As for the Knicks, Mikal Bridges had 25 points, 3 assists, 4 rebounds, and a block on 11 of 16 shooting. Jalen Brunson had 40, 7 and 4 on 15 of 33 shooting. Just 3 of 10 from deep, but he hit the one that counted in tremendous fashion. OG Anunoby had 22 points, 5 rebounds, 3 steals, and 2 blocks on 6 of 14 shooting. Josh Hart had 13 points and 10 rebounds. And again, Karl Anthony Towns, bro, let's just say that he is probably the biggest beneficiary of this potential win right here. Because if this shit would have been a loss and it would have gone to Game 7, we'd be asking some very serious questions about Karl Anthony Towns' standing with this team right now. And even then, we should be doing it anyways. Because 2 points in the second half in a game where Jalen Brunson was struggling in that stretch, and you being the co-star should be trying to step it up in that moment, and you don't. And again, just 10 points overall 15 boards, yeah, okay. But 10 points on 4 of 10 shooting. For a person considered to be an offensive threat. That's just not a good showing. But the Knicks, as ugly as it might have been, it got the job done. And that's all you can truly ask for. But again, like I said, if you are a Pistons fan, don't be too disappointed with where you're at. Like, it's much better than the past decade has been. They put up their hardest fight. As they get healthier and maybe find a piece or so, they could be better off in the seasons to come. But, we will see. Alright. Moving on to the Nuggets and Clippers, where neither player, when it came to Kawhi Leonard or Jamal Murray, just could stop missing at the start of this game. That's essentially how the first quarter went. Yes, other players got involved for both teams, but it really came down to the shot making of those two ultimately being the separator in this particular period. As the Nuggets would have just a 3-point advantage by the end of this first quarter. We get into the second, and the Clippers, akin to how they had done in the very first game of the series, they were able to take things over completely in the second quarter and go on a tear. Most of that, obviously, was facilitated with the way that James Harden breaks down a basketball game and runs an offense. Like, there's a reason why he said that he was a system. Literally. Just getting people in their spots open, putting up exceptional shots in some of the cleanest ways imaginable. And then just also, defensively, getting his hands in the cookie jar of some of these players. Swiping passes in passing lanes, and it just bled throughout the entire Clippers lineup. They also did a much better job of accounting for Nikola Jokic. Yes, they would display a graphic talking about the fact that Nikola Jokic, including this series, has averaged at least a 25-point triple-double 3 different times. And I will say that while he was on pace to have that kind of game again, it wasn't going to be easy. Like, they were there. Literally, as soon as he got towards the middle of the court, there was always a blitz. There was always somebody trying to sneak behind and potentially steal the ball, with it working on some occasions. And then in some of the crazier moments, they swarmed that man. Like, I think the entire team at a certain point damn near got their hands on the basketball as soon as he tried to put up a floater. Shit was insane. But given that, the Nuggets would be at a deficit as James Harden continued to torch them, eventually putting up a 17-point second quarter after struggling in the previous 2 ball games. And Zubac was also a huge testament to the Clippers' defense in this one. Because while Jokic would finish with the output that he had, the physicality from Zubac was there all game long. And in some cases, he was able to best him with that effort, even though Nikola Jokic tried to draw superstar foul calls at times. It was to no avail. Zubac was right on it. As the second quarter would end, the Nuggets would storm back just a little bit with Nikola Jokic's help, but ultimately Zubac would get a tip-in that put them up by 1. Entering the third quarter, what stood out to me the most was the fact that they were already at a huge deficit when it came to turnovers. Now, they were able to weather just like at least maybe one run from the Clippers, but I don't know how Adelman was feeling, but I guess he felt it too many times in the first half that the Nuggets were slipping out of contention. And timeout after timeout after timeout would be wasted. To where he had like 3 or 4 to open up the third quarter. And I'm thinking at that point that he would have to be exceptionally careful with how he uses them. Because if he doesn't, the Nuggets were going to be in trouble. Like, what happens the next time they go on a run and you have just like a couple of timeouts or so to work with? You're going to have to ride it out. You have no choice. After just a few possessions to enter the second half, he already decided to call a timeout, bringing him down to like 2 or 3. Michael Porter Jr. would get involved for pretty much the only time of the night, because he would eventually be benched once again. Meanwhile, Norm Powell was their ace in the hole for this half, as he would go on an 11-point third quarter while also getting a crazy fucking dunk on both Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., getting them both out the way. Shit was insane. Meanwhile, the Nuggets just crumbled from here. Just turnovers building up on each other. Offensive rebounds not being grasped by their rebounding threats. And allowing easy putbacks for the Clippers. Over the course of what would be a 13-6 run, as Norm Powell and even Derrick Jones Jr. continue to try to bury them. It would go up by as much as 14 here, but a Nikola Jokic 3 at the end of the third quarter would eventually get it back down to 11. By that point, the Nuggets had like just a couple of timeouts left. And again, they had to just roll with the punches. They had no choice. You did not have a lot of flexibility here, and ultimately that was their undoing, because while they would see some good offense at times, the Nuggets just could not get enough stops, and they started also just allowing open shooters. Like, even if Derrick Jones Jr. isn't considered the best, he's going to hit open jump shots, and he did that at multiple points. Then a James Harden 3 would force them to use their second to last timeout. They tried to work around this afterwards by utilizing some of the dead ball action to get different players in. And though they would see just a slight surge from their offense, they were still going to be at a deficit, because they would have to run with this roster through essentially the rest of the game. It wouldn't stop them from making a push, though. One would have thought that the game would have been over, but like this series has shown, all pretty much in every single game, is never over until that buzzer sounds. So the Nuggets would go on a 15-5 run to attempt to come back in this game. But over the course of that, their defense, the Clippers, began to tighten up, because Zubac would get the better of Jokic down the stretch, forcing up tough shots and even rejecting some of his attempts. Now, at the same time, Russell Westbrook as well would get very good looks at making layups, and he got blocked by Batum on one front. Then, after managing to get a turnover, would smoke another one in one fell swoop, effectively ending the Nuggets' chances right there. And like I predicted, pretty much all series long, since the very first damn game, the Clippers would win with a 111 to 105 score to even up the series and send it to 7, where they will face off against them in Denver later on, actually. That's certainly tough, but you got to respect a team that is able to make that adjustment at that particular time. Because as clutch as Jokic can be, he was rendered ineffective in the biggest moment of the game. Despite him having 25 points, 7 rebounds, and 8 assists with 2 3-pointers, he had to take 22 shots, which is far below Jokic's standard. Jamal Murray would finish with 21 points on 9 of 19 shooting, along with 8 rebounds and assists, and surprisingly, 3 blocks, which I never truly expected from him. Aaron Gordon would have 19 points on 9 of 16 shooting. Christian Braun would have 14 points and shoot 5 of 7 from the field with 2 threes. Again, Westbrook, not necessarily a bad overall game, but once more, what is it with this man getting wide open looks with easy fast break opportunities and missing routine layups? This is the second time in this series, in a clutch moment, and probably even way more if we're just talking about from a general standpoint. Like 14 rebounds, 14 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists is nothing to scoff at, and he shot well. But a couple of them shots would have at least put the Nuggets within a single possession. And at that point, it's really anybody's ball game. Meanwhile, for the Clippers, despite them not even being remotely effective from 3, they were able at least to force a good amount of fast break opportunities, and that eventually got them back in the game in the first place, while also giving them the lead that they, while it looked as though Denver could take it back, they never truly let go of. Harden would have himself a pretty solid bounce back with 28 points, 8 assists, and 6 rebounds, all on 10 of 20 shooting with 3 threes. Kawhi would have 27 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists on 11 of 22 shooting. And Norm Powell had 24 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 steals on 9 of 15 shooting. Ivica Zubac also added in 10 points and 6 rebounds. But his defense was very exceptional. And again, we were finally going to see it on full display. Tyronn Lue has embraced the notion that Zubac probably gives them the best chance to at least slow down Jokic, and especially in moments like that, keep a physical presence on him at all times. And he's done that. Now they have a chance to fight back all the way and potentially clinch the series in Game 7 because of that simple adjustment. If only Doc Rivers would have trusted in that, who knows where he'd be at right now. Although he'd probably find a way to fuck something up there anyways. Let's be perfectly honest here. Moving on to the Rockets and Warriors yesterday. And to be honest, it felt early on like the Rockets were riding off a little bit of the momentum they had from Game 5. Because Fred VanVleet would get off to another hot start with 8 first-quarter points off the rip. Even with that being said, the Warriors were able to guard them up much better in this game to start out. It wasn't really all that bad. It was a competitive back-and-forth ball game in this early stretch. What hurt them, why they were down for this much time, had really stemmed from similar issues that had been prevalent across the entire series. They just could not do much to counter the advantage of the Rockets having Steven Adams. He is just a terror in the paint. And the Rockets were able to tap into that, not only on like offensive rebounding and just having great rim protection, because man had 3 blocks in this ball game too, but also with just screening players out of the way and helping some of the ball handlers get open looks down low in the mid-range. He was just a force to be reckoned with in this one. Then, as some of the substitutions were made, I don't know why, but you're just giving guys like Tari Eason and Jabari Smith Jr. open looks off of the bench, which made things get just a touch out of hand. But again, nothing so out of the ordinary for a typical basketball game, right? Game of run. And the Warriors would do that a little bit, tying up the ball game with around 2 minutes left. But once more, some sloppy play when it came to just a succession of turnovers, multiple possessions in a row. The Rockets were able to come out with what appeared to have been a 7-point lead by the end of the first half, if not for a very improbable Jimmy Butler, the third shot. They were ruling it a 2 after further review because it looked like a 3 and he got fouled. Still, he was literally leaning to his side and just chucks up the ball for a crazy shot that I didn't even envision him making. But that got the crowd motivated a little bit. All it would take would be for the Warriors to just, they had to just, like, those are simple fixes. Very, very easy fixes to manage. And they would for a time. I mean, the third quarter, although their defense did fall to the wayside a little bit, allowing the Rockets to put up 33 overall points, again, the Warriors continued to keep chipping away, keep responding. They always had something to fall back on if the Rockets were going to get some of their shots to go. Like, it never got out of hand, despite the efforts of the Rockets here. Both defenses were trying to keep each other at a limit. And at times they were, but good offense just continued to prevail overall as Jabari Smith Jr. would get himself involved. And while Stephen Curry would still be trying to get himself inserted a little bit, he was already playing well. But now you had guys like Brandon Podziemski and Moses Moody getting themselves involved as well. Quentin Post would eventually get himself in foul trouble, still though providing good minutes like he had been for a good portion of the series. Then, with the quarter coming to a close, Stephen Curry would draw a foul, allowing him to put up 2 free throws to bring the game within 2 at the end of the third. And then we got the fourth quarter of absolute hell. In every single capacity. There was no energy in terms of crashing the glass. They were able to get pretty much every offensive rebound that they wanted. At the worst possible moments, they left shooters open, and they were able to green their shots. Even in cases where they weren't open, fouls became an issue as soon as the quarter started. Just 6 seconds in, you had Gary Payton II foul Fred VanVleet on a three-point jumper to bring the game up to a 6-point deficit instantly. All around, the defense just wasn't there. And then offensively, it wasn't even just one or two players. The whole team could not generate offense. Now, yes, that is a testament to the Rockets' defense being the way that they are. And you have to credit them in an elimination game situation, being able to hunker down on defense late in such a high-stakes point of the ball game to get themselves steps closer to closing it out. It's a major respect to them. But at the same time, there are also other elements that go into it. When you mean to tell me that an entire team, to start off the most important quarter of your season potentially, after being down by just 2 points, not only do you reach an aggressive double-digit deficit as the Rockets just continue to go on a 12-0 run that honestly probably lasted for much more time, they start off the quarter shooting 1 of 16 from the field as a team. As a team. Most of the other scoring, or lack thereof, that had come at that point came from the free throw line. Nothing else. No one. Nobody. Yes, Buddy Hield did go scoreless in the game, and it probably would have been better to bench him given the personnel the Rockets would opt to go with during this game. At the same time, it was not just him. It was every single player struggling to make shots at ideal points. And that certainly hurt them by the end of it. They had no choice but to concede and suit up for a potential Game 7. Just the worst possible scenario after being up 3-1. I just don't necessarily understand the idea of trying to make this more difficult than it needs to be. Doesn't make a lot of sense. At the same time, again, Rockets, credit to them for being this young team and having themselves be counted out of this particular series by a good amount of people. They are certainly giving the Warriors a great fight here. And they do have a chance, with home court advantage in Houston, to potentially do what most people might consider to be unthinkable. They have all the momentum on their side after ripping off 2 straight dominant wins, especially with the way they were able to impose their will late in this game. They're riding hot right now. But in terms of how it might look for them the next game, it's going to be important for them to kind of temper their emotions a little bit. You can't necessarily make the moment too big for yourselves, or else there will be a lot of overthoughts. They will overlook certain details in the game plan that they need to be honing into, and some of those shots will look rushed. Play will be disoriented all over the place, and that's the last thing that you would want to do in front of your home crowd. So they're gonna have to get themselves focused on the mission. You have to treat this as exactly what it is. But you can't necessarily let those thoughts just take over every single aspect of your mental. Obviously, in terms of the effort, they've shown it throughout the entire series. So with this being Game 7, you can expect it to be there. The Warriors will have to match it. They have to. Or the numbers here, the Rockets would be led by Fred VanVleet, having 29 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists, making the most three-pointers over a 3-game stretch for a Rockets player in playoff history, and shooting 7-13 from the field, making 6 threes. Auburn Schengen would have 21 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists with 3 steals on 8 of 20 shooting. Steven Adams would shoot 4 from the field. He got hacked so much, but he actually made more than 50% of his free throws and managed to get 17 points and 3 blocks. Ausar Thompson and Jalen Green did struggle, but that was totally fine. Because, again, they more than made up for it with their own forms of defensive intensity. Obviously, Ausar Thompson, but even Jalen Green, just trying to hustle for plays and hitting timely shots when you needed to. Though it's not the output you would want from a person that you are giving a rookie contract extension to alongside Auburn Schengen. You have to respect the effort in that moment. Stephen Curry would have 29 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists with 2 steals for the Warriors here on 9 of 23, shooting with 6 threes. Jimmy Butler III had 27 points on 7 of 17 shooting, with 9 rebounds and 8 assists. There was literally a stretch in the fourth quarter where they're down by that much to where you don't really have another choice but to shoot 3-pointers. And he just chucked up multiple from the corner. And the Rockets would live with that pretty much every time. That's not a shot you want to consistently generate. Brandon Podziemski had 10 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists off the bench. And Moses Moody had 13 points and 2 rebounds off the bench as well. The 3-pointer was not falling, which is what it is, but still, they were in it. That fourth quarter collapse should be a cause for concern. And if they don't improve on that output, they will be facing the notion of being sent home in the first round. Because even with all that, all those metrics being in play, it's like, dude, if you have the game that close and you collapse that late as a veteran team, that's a problem. But that'll do it for all the game action. As far as some news from yesterday, and man, there were some news. While there's going to be a major shift in San Antonio. Let's just preface that by saying that statement right there. Gregg Popovich, after 29 years in San Antonio, would recuse himself from the head coaching position of the team. And he will elevate in the organization. So he'll still be there, but he will be the team president, the executive president of basketball operations for the squad. A major shift. As shocking as it was to see, it ultimately makes sense. The fact that he is even still able to be around and make such a decision is a miracle in and of itself, because there is a strong chance that he could have been taken out by said stroke that he suffered in November. That's the most important thing, first and foremost, is that he's still living and breathing to be able to make that decision on his own accord. And he's earned that with everything that he has been able to do. I mean, he like the accomplishments speak for themselves. A 3-time coach of the year, a 5-time champion, and I think the most wins by an NBA head coach in history. A model of consistency to where so many different players across these 3 decades have just garnered nothing but respect for the man. You've seen in all of the outpour of support league-wide that has followed this report, former players and current players who may not have even suited up for him just have nothing but great things to say about him. Just all around a well-respected and well-renowned individual. There's a reason why he was named one of the 15 greatest coaches in NBA history in 2022. There's a reason for that. And though I guess he did have a demeanor on the basketball court as this hard-nosed coach, it was really because he was just trying to get the best out of his players. And behind the scenes, he created so many special moments with so many special people that they hold dear to their hearts and will probably do so for the rest of time. As demanding as the head coach position can be for any person, after dealing with health setbacks like that, there's an understanding that you, as an individual, Popovich is now 76 years old. You're trying to take it as easy as possible to avoid further health setbacks. And let's just be honest, the way that the game is played, naturally, tensions can rise with people, emotions can rise up in people. At any moment, if Popovich were to be on the sideline again, trying to supervise the entire team, any number of things could happen, and he himself doesn't want to put himself in that position again. The team also knows that they would not want one of their own to be in that position. So there's a mutual component to this, to where they both decided it was best for him to make that move up to the front office. As much as he would probably love to coach this team once more, he is likely not going to be able to provide the same energy to the entire squad that he once was. But at the very least, he is still a part of the organization. Players will still have a chance to see him around if he is a physical presence. And he'll still have an impact on the squad. Because part of that job entails the construction of a roster. You're essentially I'm not going to say scouting, but you're looking at how different trends in the NBA lineup, and you're looking at the projections of some of these players, and you're just giving the general manager a little bit of advice, or at least a nudge on the shoulder. Not necessarily a warning, but at least some sort of sign, some sort of signal to be on the lookout for such and such talent. And it's not something that Popovich is new to. He had been an executive before. Maybe this specific role is new, but certainly with how he has conducted himself over the years as a general presence for the team, I think he can do quite well in that role. And it's exactly where he wants to be. You just continue to hope that he can get better and better and that he continues to remain healthy. That's what ultimately matters here. With Gregg Popovich stepping down from his role as head coach and moving up to the front office, the interim head coach from last season, in Mitch Johnson, will now become the full-time head coach for the Spurs organization in the foreseeable future. In other news, they would mention that LeBron would be diagnosed with a grade 2 MCL sprain at the end of Game 5 against the Timberwolves. And if they were still in it, he would have missed the rest of the series, essentially, because it's going to take him like 5 to 6 weeks to recover, they said. Again, though, while it's not necessarily something that can be controlled, that just continues to play into the reason why JJ Redick is probably getting a lot of flack right now. Because while this injury was direct contact to Dante DiVincenzo's knee, at the same time, some of these aspects of potential injuries to both Doncic and James could have been avoided if you had some plans in place for how you were going to sort out your roster during this time. To run that shorthanded roster and expect them with their respective age and conditions to be ready to attempt the full-on comeback is insane without much help at all. That was my other major question as well. Like, Dalton Knecht, though he's not necessarily a big man, is still there and could provide you with shooting. Why didn't he play a single minute in the series? At all. Very questionable. Just having extra bodies out there to alleviate some of that pressure. Even if Dalton Knecht is a rookie, so what? You know, for the Grizzlies, they would also make things permanent with Tuomas Iisalo, who would become the full-time head coach for their squad. I mean, I guess it makes sense. You might not like the rest of the outlook for the league when it comes to head coaching candidates. Though, again, there are some guys who would really do well in this role. There are very good head coaches out there. But they may feel as though Iisalo is actually legitimate. So we'll see just how legitimate he is given a full offseason, full training camp, and potentially a full regular season. It's also going to depend on the roster, too. Like, if you're just throwing bums out there, then, okay. Even if Iisalo's this offensive mind, they ain't going to do much of anything. But, again, the Grizzlies are going to be an interesting team to watch in the offseason. They just are. even if you're not necessarily buying all of the rumors that might be out there, it should be quite the situation to navigate. Truly. But that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.